are now on air.
Hi, it's Ed with Free Circle. I'd like to talk today a little bit about prepping for the cold. Because, as we all know, winter is approaching. And where I live, you prep for the cold. If you're not ready for it in October, you could get pretty surprised pretty quick. We've already had a couple freeze spells, early morning freezes, and that's the alarm where I live here in Southern Oregon in the Klamath Basin. I live right directly between Klamath Falls and Lakeview. And I live pretty close to Mitchell Monument. And Mitchell Monument is where a Chinese balloon dropped and went off and killed a bunch of people. It was the only bomb that was successfully dropped during the World War II Chinese ballooning campaign. And it's remarkable, if you look that up, Mitchell Monument, it should tell you the story about Mitchell Monument. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. But during World War II, the Japanese balloons, they let them off over in Japan, and they drifted high into the upper atmosphere, and they used that flow of the winds, the prevailing winds, to get them over into America. And I'm amazed that one of those balloons actually made it up over the Cascade Range and dropped. But anyway, I'm digressing from the prepping for the winter story here. Anyway, look up Mitchell Monument. During wintertime up here where we are, yeah, you prep for the winter pretty early. And we usually get pretty lucky. For the last 5 years, it's pretty much waited until December or later to actually start snowing. But when it snows, it starts snowing, and then them sub-zero temperatures hit, and it'll stay in that range for a long time. So, yeah, you got to prep for the cold, and that means draining all your hoses, getting the basins all cleaned out, ready for the rain and the snow. I got to prep all of my snow thrower and get my quad hooked up with a plow so I can push snow. There's a lot of work involved in prepping for winter. And up here, you never know when you need to push or snow throw. And I'm talking a 2-stage snow thrower, because sometimes it gets so deep that even my big Polaris Sportsman, it doesn't push it. I don't have a big enough blade. So, yeah, I have to pack up and get a snow blower working, and that sucks in the middle of the winter. So at the end of the winter, I always drain the gas. I make sure everything's drained. That way you don't get condensation and bad gas building up in your carburation. And mainly, carburation is the number one reason people take their snow throwers, lawn mowers, all of that to the shop. So if you drain your gas, get ready for the winter before the summer starts, I like to use that stabilizer in your fuel, and especially your last tank. If you don't use it all the time, the last time you use your equipment before the winter, you should mix up your final gas can with stabilizer in there and make sure you run that fuel out of your equipment. What I'll do is I'll set it out on the lawn and I'll just run the motor until it dies and then let it set a few more minutes and then start it again, and it sucks up the rest of that gas. And I've never had an issue with any of my equipment that way. It's ready for the next season. However, before I use my equipment each season, I give it an oil change. I make sure everything is in correct operating order. And that's what time of the year it is. Got to get all of that equipment ready for the snow. The big thing is just you got to drain all of your summer gear, make sure that's ready for next spring. And I leave one push mower so I have it just in case I need to mow a lawn. But my weed eater, my chainsaw, all of these gasoline-powered equipment, yeah, you got to get it ready, oil it up, and store it. And that way you're ready. A lot of people don't store their equipment properly, and it costs them a lot of money. And if you can get your equipment ready at the last time you use it for the season, that's the trick. A lot of people, they get lazy and I'll do it later. Well, if you know it's your last time, do that seasonal maintenance and get it ready. And that way it's ready to go at the season change. Check that spark plug, make sure the spark plug is efficient, gap it. I just put a new one in each year, and that helps. And usually you don't have issues if you maintain your equipment properly. So, yeah, all the equipment gets ready at the same time. Even though you're changing seasons, you're still in that transition period. So before the snow, I want my snow blower, my plow, everything ready. I dig out the roof rake, make sure everything's good, because I live way out here in the forest and I can't run to Home Depot or Lowe's, or I've got to make sure I've got the stuff I need. Because when it dumps 3 to 4 foot of snow and you're not prepared, well, things can go wrong. So right now I'm working kind of on getting all of my equipment changed over, my plow hooked up. Usually I go hunting and I take my quad hunting and all of that. I didn't go hunting this year. I got too busy. I had way too much on my platter. So, yeah, I can start early changing that quad over to push snow. And with the winch, I just use the winch on the machine to raise and lower the plow. So, excuse me. Yeah, it's that busy time. Got to get everything ready. And at the same time, I'm checking all of my windows and all of the roof details, make sure I don't need to caulk or do anything like that. Because if you don't do these things, I've learned dead of winter, you don't want to be up there monkeying with your roof. I go up, I make sure that all of my vents are okay. There's no lifting of my roofing material, and make sure it's taken care of. It's switching that time where, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get 4 feet of snow or not. So I got to be ready. And at the same time, you got to make sure all of your faucets are covered, and you put those, I installed those anti-freeze valves for my outdoor faucets. So they actually come in 18 inches before they shut on and off, and it allows a buffer there for that freeze. And that way, if I need a hose in the middle of winter for some reason, I have a faucet that will handle that. So if you don't have those anti-freeze outdoor faucets, I suggest get in there and get them hooked up. They do the job, and I get below zero up here, so I've never had issues with them. They work well. Another thing, my furnace, I was in there tinkering with my furnace the other day. I've got a lot more to do with that furnace before winter gets here, because I want to make sure all of that wiring is good. I noticed I've got a couple brittle or hard wires on my control panel, and I'm going to make sure that gets taken off, and I've got good wire with good connection, because if you don't have good connection, you get friction in there, and friction causes heat, and it's not good. So yeah, you want to make sure any of your wiring is capable of handling it. And yeah, I found in that furnace of mine, it's better to just go through and check everything. After that breaker ordeal I had, I want to make sure the whole furnace doesn't have any resistance in any of the wire, because resistance cause heat, and that causes fire. So now's the time to be thinking of all of those. Change your filter, check all of the vents, your lint traps. A lot of people don't check that in their dryer, their clothes dryer, and that's actually bad and it'll cause fires. So it's that time of the year. Make sure you add that dryer vent, inspect that. So as the winter rolls in, work piles up, and then you've got your ordinary life to maintain also. So yeah, if you start early, you don't get all that built up hectic racing, and then you forget things. Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance, and that's a good way to live your life. The more you can think about beforehand, it's easier in the long run. You spread the cost of the repairs out. So take care of your equipment. Your home is equipment to me. It is a tool. You have to have it. And with me and my tools, you make sure those tools are good, in operative mode, sharp. If you're using tools that are unsharp, they can be deadly. So always think safety first with whatever you're doing. That's a common rule. Everybody should think safe, and if you practice it, it makes your life a little easier. And I had to go for a while to learn that. I was in my mid-20s before I started really understanding your tools they make your living. So you got to make sure everything you use is in proper working order. So the times are changing. The leaves are actually falling off the trees, and all of the icicles are starting to think about dripping off the roof edge. So check your gutters, make sure all your drains are in good operating order. You don't want that water, when it backs up, it can do a lot of damage to your home. So there's a lot of these maintenance things that you have to think about. And if you get on top of it and keep it maintained, it saves you a lot of money, a lot of headache, and a lot of time. So don't just say, well, it's time to put the lawnmower up and wheel it in and do nothing with it. Make sure you maintain it. Excuse me. Clean the bottom out. Make sure all of that grass that is accumulated in that lawnmower is cleaned out, and it'll save your lawnmower deck. It won't rust as quick. Make sure you take care of your gear. Do all the greasing and the oiling. I like to drain the oil, and you don't really need to store it with oil in it, but I do. I like to put fresh oil in, and that way your sump well is not just sitting there. It's better to have oil in there, in my personal opinion. So yeah, it's that time. Start thinking about winter. Get them done. Get all your chores lined out and done. And that's basically my prepping for the cold speech. I hope you enjoyed listening. Never feel that you can't join in. You're always welcome to barge in. I try to keep things on topic, but I will bust topic once in a while. So, yeah, get ready for winter. I hope you stay dry and warm and safe. And like always, have a good afternoon. Ed, Free Circle, out.